The laptop was still warm. That's how I knew she hadn't meant to leave it open. It sat there on the kitchen counter, next to her empty coffee mug and a half-eaten banana, humming softly like it hadn't realized it was supposed to keep secrets. I wasn't looking for anything. I swear I wasn't. I had just come home early from work because the office internet went out. I was still holding my bag when I noticed it. Her MacBook, screen still glowing, cursor blinking at the edge of a message that changed everything. It wasn't even a full sentence. Just 5 words. Last night felt too short. That's it. No emojis. No name. Just a text bubble sitting in a desktop chat window I didn't recognize. Not iMessage. Something browser-based. Some platform I'd never seen her use. And I know all of them. She always insisted I help with her updates and app syncing. I stared at the words. They stared back. Then, 3 little dots appeared. Someone was typing. I froze. I know I should have closed the laptop and walked away. I should have respected her privacy. But the thing is, when someone says, last night felt too short, and it wasn't your night, you stop caring about etiquette. The response popped up. You should have stayed. He's clueless. Clueless. I guess that's me. The message was from someone labeled only as R. The initials didn't match anyone in her contacts, at least not the ones I'd seen. And I had seen them. A few months ago, she let me update her phone while we were stuck in traffic. She didn't care. Back then, she wasn't hiding anything. But that was before. Before she started going out for air after dinner. Before she began leaving her phone face down. Before she changed her scent, her passwords, her tone. Before this moment. I didn't touch anything. Didn't scroll. I didn't have to. Because a second later, the chat blinked again with a photo upload. It loaded slowly. Pixel by pixel. It was her. Wrapped in a hotel robe. Sitting on the edge of a bed I'd never seen. Smiling. Smiling in a way I hadn't seen in months. I dropped my bag. It made a sound. Not loud, but loud enough. Upstairs, I heard the bathroom door open. Her footsteps padded down the hall. I snapped the laptop shut, spun around, and pretended to be pouring myself a glass of water, hands shaking so hard the bottle cap clinked against the counter. Hey babe, she said, like nothing had happened. Like her betrayal wasn't still echoing through the fan vents. Hey, I muttered. I didn't look at her. Not because I was angry, but because I didn't want her to see the moment I broke. That night, I didn't say a word. Neither did she. She kissed me on the cheek and went to bed early. Said she had a headache. Of course she did. At 2:13 a.m., I got up and opened my notes app, and I started writing the letters she'll read when I'm gone. Because she has no idea I know. Yet, the worst part wasn't the photo. It wasn't even the message. It was how normal she acted afterward. She walked around our home like everything was fine. She asked me if I could refill the dishwasher tabs. She reminded me to water the plants while she'd be out with Paige Friday night. Paige, the friend who moved to Arizona 2 months ago. I didn't say anything. I just nodded, and the second she turned her back, I opened my phone and created a new contact labeled Paige, real, with a fake number attached. I wasn't sure what I'd use it for yet, but I felt like I was preparing for war. The next few days were the hardest act I've ever performed. I smiled. I cracked jokes. I made her coffee the way she liked. Almond milk, 2 drops of agave, cinnamon on top, stirred counterclockwise. I did all of it. And she drank it without blinking, without guilt, like she wasn't dancing through our lives in borrowed hotel robes and stolen moments with a man named R. I was spiraling. I couldn't sleep. I started imagining what she looked like in those hotel rooms, what she said to him when the lights were off. I replayed that single sentence, he's clueless, until it echoed every time she said my name. I didn't know how to confront her. I was terrified of the answer. So I did something stupid, something petty, something I thought was clever. I decided to test her. Friday came. She got ready like she always did. A little too much makeup for just dinner with a friend. That maroon dress, the one she hadn't worn in over a year. She used to say it made her feel too much, but now apparently it was just right for a chill night out. She stood at the mirror, adjusting her earrings, humming some song I didn't recognize. And then, as casually as I could manage, I asked, "Do you want me to drop you off? I need to swing by the pharmacy anyway." She paused, just for half a second, but I noticed. "Oh, no. Paige is picking me up. She should be here in 10. That's all I needed to hear. I nodded. "Cool. Tell her I said hi." And then I waited. I heard the front door open, then close. I counted to 60. I stepped outside. Our driveway was empty. The street was quiet. No sign of Paige. No car waiting. Just Malin, walking fast toward the corner, where a silver Lexus pulled up and blinked its lights. She opened the passenger door and got in. Not in the back. Passenger. I followed. Not right away, of course. I waited 2 minutes. Gave them a head start. Then I grabbed the keys, started my old SUV, and tailed them from half a block behind, heart pounding so hard I thought I might pass out. They didn't go to any restaurant. They didn't go to Paige's. They drove to the Grand Pinewood Hotel, a place we used to stay when we were still trying, when we thought weekends away could fix what years of silence had started. They parked. He got out first. I recognized him immediately, not from real life, but from Instagram. A mutual friend of her friend. Some personal trainer turned part-time motivational speaker. His name wasn't Cameron or Ryan or even anything close to R. It was Rhett. She told me once he was arrogant and full of himself. Funny how preferences shift when someone offers attention. They walked in together. She was smiling, touching his arm, wearing the perfume she told me she had stopped buying because it didn't smell like me anymore. I drove home. Didn't crash. Didn't scream. Didn't even cry. I just sat in the dark kitchen for 2 hours, staring at her mug from that morning. The one that said, "Love is choosing each other every day." When she came home later, hair a little messy, dress slightly wrinkled, I was still pretending. She kissed me on the forehead and said, "It was fun. Paige says hi." I whispered, "I'm glad." She had no idea what I knew. Not yet. But I was done pretending. That night, I added the final paragraph to the letter I'd been writing. And I put a copy in the mailbox addressed to her, so she'd find it when she least expected it. I made sure to leave for work 10 minutes earlier than usual that morning. Not because I had anywhere special to be, just because I wanted to watch her find the letter. It was a Wednesday. Nothing special on the calendar. No holidays. No anniversaries. Just an average day that would split her world open in the middle of our quiet cul-de-sac. I backed my SUV out of the driveway and pulled across the street, pretending to check my tires while keeping one eye on the house. She always grabbed the mail around 9:20 a.m. Like clockwork. It was part of her mental reset walk, as she called it, some ritual she started when she began following a productivity influencer who told her walking to the mailbox reconnected you with simplicity. That same influencer later got exposed for having 3 assistants and a ghostwriter, but Malin kept the routine anyway. At 9:19, the door opened. She stepped out in her robe, hair pulled back, AirPods in, sipping her morning blend of whatever green liquid she claimed helped her skin glow. She didn't see me. She never looked past the edge of our front lawn anymore. Maybe that's why she didn't notice me disappearing, either. I watched her walk to the mailbox like everything in her life was untouched. Her robe swayed. Her slippers scuffed the pavement. She opened the box and reached inside. A circular, 2 credit card offers, and then my envelope. Plain. No return address. No handwriting on the outside. Just her name printed on a label. I didn't want her to recognize the handwriting. I wanted her to read it before realizing who wrote it. She stared at it for a second, tilted her head. Then she opened it right there, like it couldn't possibly be important enough to take inside. Her thumb ran along the flap. She pulled the letter out. 1 page. Black ink. No Dear Malin. No Love, Dean. Just a letter full of truth. I watched her eyes move, line by line. First with curiosity, then with stillness. Then I saw it. Her jaw tensed. The muscles in her face froze. She stopped sipping her smoothie. Her hand dropped slightly, like the paper got heavier with every sentence. I knew exactly where she was in the letter when she suddenly looked up and around, like someone had spoken her name out loud. That was the paragraph where I wrote, "You've been touching someone else like I'm already dead. Maybe I have been to you, but I'm not dead. I've just been quiet. Too quiet. And now it's your turn to sit in the silence." She folded the letter, put it back in the envelope. She didn't even finish her walk. She turned and marched back to the house, gripping that envelope like it was alive and biting her palm. An hour later, she called me. Twice. I didn't answer. I was sitting in my parked car behind a drugstore downtown, watching the call screen blink like a guilty pulse. I let it ring, then watched the second call come. Then a text. "Dean, what is this? Where are you? Call me." Another. "Please. Let's talk. I don't know what you think you saw." Exactly what I expected. Not denial. Just manipulation. The "what you think you saw" line. The classic move of someone who's hoping you only saw part of the truth and not all of it. Hoping you're confused. Hoping you'll doubt your own eyes. I wasn't confused. Not anymore. I turned off my phone and stayed gone until after sunset. When I came home, the lights were off. Unusual. She always left the porch light on for me. I walked in and found her on the couch, clutching the letter in one hand and her phone in the other. Her mascara was smudged, even though she hadn't left the house. Her eyes were red, but I didn't say anything. She stood up and said, "Please, can we talk? I need to explain." I walked past her, into the kitchen, opened the fridge, poured myself a glass of water. I kept my back to her and said quietly, "There's nothing to explain. You already did that in a bathrobe in a hotel I paid for." She stepped closer. "You don't understand." I turned then, slowly, met her eyes. "You're right. I don't understand how you held my hand every morning and texted him with the same one every night. I don't understand how you kissed me goodbye, then walked into his arms like we were some experiment you'd already finished. So no, I don't understand." She was crying now. Real tears. I believe that. But I also believe they weren't for what she did. They were for what she was about to lose. I left her standing there, went into the guest room, and shut the door. I heard her sob once, maybe twice. Then silence. That was the last night we slept under the same roof, and the beginning of the unraveling of everything she thought I'd never dare to touch. The day after I moved into the guest room, she woke up before me and tried to make coffee like nothing happened. The aroma hit me first, the same roast we always drank together. She was probably hoping it would trigger some kind of muscle memory, that I'd wander into the kitchen, say, "Good morning," sit down like I used to, and let it all dissolve in caffeine and forced smiles. I didn't move. I waited. Eventually, she knocked softly on the guest room door. "Dean, can we please sit down for 5 minutes? Just 5. You don't even have to talk. I'll do the talking. Please." I didn't answer. Not because I wanted to be cruel, but because I'd already said everything I needed to. In writing, the letter wasn't just a goodbye. It was the start of something bigger. Something she still didn't understand. See, while she was out with Paige last Friday, while she was sitting in that hotel in that robe, I was home. And I wasn't just writing. I was printing. I was scanning. I was preparing copies. Because when I said I was done pretending, I didn't mean just with her. There's something you should know about Malin. Image is everything to her. Not in a look at my car way, but in a curate every detail so people think we have the perfect life kind of way. She didn't just post filtered selfies. She posted captions like, "Grateful to be loved deeply by a man who makes even Monday mornings feel magical." She had people fooled. Her family, her coworkers, her online followers. Even my own sister once told me she was jealous of our marriage. So I decided they deserved the truth too. But I didn't want revenge. Not the kind that explodes someone's life in a tabloid way. No, I wanted her to feel the quiet shame of being exposed. Not slandered, not accused, just revealed. So I sent the letter to her mother. Malin's mother, Darlene, is not someone you lie to. A former military nurse turned church deacon. She's the type who once cut a Thanksgiving dinner short because someone told a rude joke about their spouse. Darlene raised Malin on honor, dignity, and direct consequences. At least, that's how she described it over dinner the first time I met her. I emailed her the scanned letter. No extra commentary. No dramatic subject line. Just a PDF and the words, "I thought you'd want to know what's been happening in your daughter's marriage before she tells her version." I didn't expect a reply, but I got one. 2 hours later. "Dean, I'm speechless. I'm so sorry. I will be in touch very soon." That was 5 days ago. This morning, Malin's phone started ringing while she was in the shower. I saw the name flash across the screen. Moam. She didn't pick up. It rang again. And again. Finally, I heard her shriek from the hallway. "Stop calling me, Mom. I'll explain when I see you." I didn't ask what was going on. I didn't need to. But when I walked into the kitchen for a glass of water, I saw something else that told me the ripple had already spread wider than she could handle. Her phone lit up with a message from someone named Carla, Bar Studio. It read, "Hey, is it true? People are talking. What's going on?" Another one came in, seconds later. "Just saw your story got deleted. Are you okay? What did Dean post?" I hadn't posted anything. I swear I didn't. But I guess the truth didn't need my help traveling. Someone had shared it. And Malin's carefully crafted online life, her hashtags, her glowing routines, Her couple selfies with captions like #LuckyGirl was starting to fall apart in real time. I was watching the life she built on lies begin to collapse, and for the first time in months, I actually breathed. Later that afternoon, she tried again. "I messed up," she whispered from the doorway. "But you blindsiding my mother like that? What are you trying to do to me?" I turned and looked her right in the eyes. "I'm not trying to do anything to you. I'm just done protecting the version of you that doesn't exist." Her lips parted like she wanted to fire back, but nothing came out. She just stood there, blinking, holding the phone like a broken shield. I walked past her again. Calm. Cold. Because for the first time in years, I had control. And she wasn't used to that. But she was about to get a lot more uncomfortable. Because I had one more envelope. And it was already in the mail. I never learned his last name. Not officially. Rhett was just a first name I picked up once in passing, from a tagged post mail-in quickly untagged 2 days later. I never asked her about it. I should have. But I didn't want to be the insecure husband. That's what she used to call men who asked too many questions. And I was too proud to be called that. Or maybe too naive to realize she was conditioning me to stay quiet. But I knew enough. I knew where he trained. I knew his gym's name because I helped her move her yoga gear once and saw the branded water bottle in her bag. I knew the car because I followed it to the Pinewood Hotel. And I knew what he looked like because I'd watched him walk around with the kind of swagger only men who don't fear consequences have. That's what bothered me most about Red. Not that he was younger, or fitter, or bolder, but that he smiled like the world would never hold him accountable. So I made sure the world would. I didn't just send him a letter. I sent him a package. Inside it was a clean, manila envelope. No branding. No threats. Just 2 items. The first was a photo. Not of them together. No, that would have been predictable. I printed a photo of Malin and me. The last one we ever took. It was at my sister's engagement party. I had my arm around her waist. We were both smiling. But I remember that day like it was yesterday. Malin had spent the entire car ride there texting someone else. She got quiet when I asked if everything was okay. Now, I realized that was probably the day it all started. I circled myself in the photo. Then underneath, I wrote in clean black ink. "This is the man whose house you've been entering. Whose bed she still sleeps in. Whose heart she broke with your help. Just so you know what he looks like." The second item in the package was a printout. It wasn't the letter I gave Malin. It was something else. A log. I'd made a full-page chart. Dates. Times. Locations. Photo captures from online check-ins. Calendar entries she thought were deleted. 1 line per row. All lined up. Each entry with a subtle note. Her excuse. Bar class. Reality. Pinewood Hotel. It wasn't dramatic. It was clinical. Painfully cold. It read like a spreadsheet of betrayal. And at the bottom, I wrote, "I'm not here to beg, threaten, or warn. I just think you should know the truth about who you're sleeping with. And who she's still sleeping beside." I didn't sign it. I didn't need to. He got the package on a Thursday. I tracked the delivery. He didn't respond. Didn't message. But 3 things happened within 48 hours that told me everything I needed to know. First, Malin came home from an errand, with puffy eyes and no shopping bags. Second, she didn't touch her phone for almost 3 hours, which is a record for her. She sat silently on the couch, flipping through the TV like she couldn't settle on a distraction. And third, her phone finally lit up, and I watched her expression from the hallway mirror as she read a text from a contact now saved only as R. Don't reply. She opened the message, stared at it for nearly a minute, then closed it without responding. I didn't even ask what he said, because I already knew. He'd backed off. Whatever arrangement they had, whatever fantasy they were living in, my package had punctured it. Not with rage, not with violence, but with truth. And Rhett, for all his swagger, wasn't ready to carry the burden of being the villain in someone else's story. Malin tried to act normal after that. She offered to make dinner. She asked me if I wanted to go for a walk, clear our heads. I said no, not out of anger, but because the silence she had weaponized for years was finally turning against her, and I wanted her to sit with it, to hear it echo. That night, I found her in our bedroom, curled up, not under the sheets, but on top of them, clutching one of the throw pillows she used to lecture me about not flattening. She didn't say a word when I walked in to grab my charger. She just looked at me like I was already gone. And maybe I was. But I hadn't disappeared yet, because I still had one final move. And it wasn't going to be a letter. Not this time. 3 days passed after the package reached Rhett, and the house had fallen into a strange, eerie rhythm. She still moved through the rooms like a ghost, picking up mugs that weren't there, straightening photos she could barely look at. She kept asking if we could just talk about things, but I wasn't ready for her version of the truth, the kind where every betrayal is somehow an accident, and every lie is somehow misunderstood. The silence between us grew so thick you could almost hear it settle. She stayed in the master bedroom, and I stayed in the guest room, sleeping on a mattress that felt like it had more honesty in it than the one we once shared. She'd leave me coffee outside the door sometimes. Not a word attached, not even a note. Just coffee, like guilt in liquid form. Then on the fourth morning, I did something that made her world shift again, and this time, permanently. At exactly 10 a.m., there was a knock on the door. She opened it, still in her robe, expecting maybe a delivery or a neighbor. But instead, she found a man in a gray suit standing there, holding a sealed folder. He was polite, professional, but firm. "Mrs. Mallory? I'm here on behalf of your husband," he said. "You've been served." I wasn't in the room to see her face, but I didn't need to be. I heard the sound, that little gasp she makes when she's been caught off guard but doesn't want to show it. It was followed by the unmistakable sound of the envelope tearing open and papers rustling. Then, her voice. Shaky, small, terrified. "He's filing for divorce?" Yes, I was. But this wasn't a typical divorce filing. I'd been patient, strategic. During those sleepless nights in the guest room, I wasn't just crying into my pillow, I was documenting. Every late-night text, every unexplained absence, every hotel receipt that had her maiden name on it. I even found out that she had been quietly transferring small amounts of money from our joint account to a separate one, probably meant for her new beginning. My lawyer helped me structure it all. The papers included everything: an affidavit detailing her actions, a motion to freeze our joint accounts until court proceedings, and the detail that made her crumble, a clause referencing evidence of marital misconduct. She stormed into the guest room clutching the folder, eyes wide, breath trembling. "You can't do this, Dean. You can't just blindside me like this." I looked up from my laptop and said quietly, "That's funny. I thought that's exactly what you've been doing for months." Her voice cracked. "This is our life. You can't just erase me like I'm nothing." I closed the laptop and leaned back. "I'm not erasing you, Malin. I'm just giving you the same space you asked for every time you walked out that door to meet him." She sank onto the floor, tears finally spilling. "I made a mistake," she whispered. I thought it didn't matter. I thought you'd never find out." And there it was, the confession that wasn't meant to sound like one. She didn't say she regretted it. She said she thought I'd never know. For the first time, I realized she wasn't sorry for what she did. She was sorry it got exposed. That was all it ever was for her, about control, perception, the image of being perfect. The rest of the day went by in silence. She didn't eat. She didn't call anyone. At night, I heard her phone buzzing constantly. Probably messages from her mother, maybe even Rhett trying to salvage something. But she didn't answer. And then, this still plays in my head, I heard her crying quietly into her pillow, whispering something I couldn't quite make out. I almost felt bad for her. Almost. The next morning, I woke up to the smell of coffee again, but there was no mug by the door this time. Just a folded piece of paper. One line, written in the same soft handwriting that used to leave me love notes years ago. "Please, let me explain, just once." I didn't know if I wanted to hear it, but curiosity, or weakness, got the better of me. I texted her one word back: "Talk." She came in 5 minutes later, dressed properly for the first time in days, hair tied back, eyes red but focused. She looked smaller somehow, not physically, but like the version of her I'd loved was shrinking away with every breath. "I don't expect forgiveness," she said. "But you should know, it wasn't just him." That sentence hit harder than I could process. The way she said it, calm, almost empty, it wasn't a confession. It was a detonation. I stared at her, my mind spinning, waiting for her to take it back, to explain. But she just stood there, trembling, her lips pale. And that's when I realized something terrifying. Rhett wasn't even the beginning. He was just the first one I caught. The words didn't make sense at first. It wasn't just him. I thought maybe she meant emotionally. Like, it wasn't just Rhett who made me feel neglected, or it wasn't just one mistake. But she didn't speak in metaphors. Not that night. She was too hollow for that. Her voice was stripped of charm, stripped of performance. It was just raw admission. I asked as calmly as I could, "What do you mean?" She didn't blink. She didn't stall. "There were two others before him," she said, folding her hands in her lap like she was giving some HR report. I didn't plan it. It started slowly. I stood still, frozen. I felt like the walls were moving, but the floor was staying still. I wanted to scream. I wanted to laugh. I wanted to ask how long, how many nights, how many lies. But none of that mattered now. She'd said two others before Rhett, before the robe, before the hotel, before the playlists and late-night walks, and I'm just going out for a bit, I didn't even know where to look. She kept going. The first was someone I met at a weekend retreat 2 years ago. He was married. It was just once, and it ended fast. I didn't even save his number. It wasn't emotional. Just stupid. Reckless. I should have stopped her right there. But something inside me, maybe the same part of me that wrote the letter, that printed the spreadsheet, that mailed the package, wanted to hear everything. Not for closure. Just to measure the full scale of the collapse. I said, "And the second?" She hesitated. Then she whispered a name I wasn't ready for. Trevor. The room spun. Trevor. My friend. My oldest friend. Best man at our wedding. Godfather to my niece. The same Trevor who helped me fix our leaking garage roof last year. The same Trevor who cried when he held our engagement photo and said, "Man, she's the best thing that ever happened to you." I felt like my body disconnected from my mind for a second. My pulse thundered in my ears, and my vision blurred at the edges. I grabbed the back of the chair to steady myself and said, "Trevor. Our Trevor?" She nodded once. "He was there when you pulled your back that weekend," she said quietly. "You asked him to drop off the muscle relaxers while you slept. I didn't expect him to stay. I didn't expect." "Don't." I cut her off. "Don't explain that part. Don't you dare try to turn that into some twisted accident." She looked at me like a child caught shoplifting. It didn't last long. He backed off. He felt guilty. We both agreed it was a mistake and buried it. I started pacing, but I didn't even realize I was. I was moving through a world that no longer had walls or rules. Just betrayal stitched into every corner. Trevor. The guy who came over for the Super Bowl and brought chili because he knew we liked it mild. The guy who gave me advice when I thought I was falling behind in life. The guy who once told Malin, half joking, "You better treat him right, or I'll fight you myself." What a sick joke. "I need to know one thing," I said finally, still gripping the back of the chair like it might keep me from losing my mind. Was it still happening? When I asked him to be my emergency contact last year. She blinked slowly, like she was about to break. "No," she whispered. "That was after. He blocked me. He cut it off. You'll probably hate me for saying this, but he was the one who tried to do the right thing." I laughed. It wasn't a good laugh. It was the kind that sounds more like choking. "Oh, so now I'm supposed to be impressed that he eventually stopped screwing my wife?" She didn't respond. She just wiped her face, even though there were no tears left. I sat down, not because I was tired, but because my legs wouldn't hold me anymore. All of it. Months of suspicion, letters, silence, strategy, control, fell apart in one syllable. Trevor. It made Rhett look like a footnote. It made the whole betrayal personal in a way I hadn't even imagined. This wasn't just her wrecking our marriage. This was her stepping on the one part of my life that had nothing to do with her, the one friendship that had lasted through every phase of me. And she broke that too. That night, I didn't sleep. I didn't cry. I didn't pack. I just sat at the edge of the bed in the guest room with the lights off, rereading every message Trevor had ever sent me over the last year. He hadn't texted me in a while. Now I knew why. By morning, I had already sent one final message to my lawyer. Because the divorce wasn't going to be quiet anymore. She thought I was bluffing. Even after everything, Malin still believed I was the kind of man who endured. Quietly. Who would rant in private, maybe write a sad post on Reddit, but never actually go through with leaving her. She thought the letter was a tantrum. The lawyer was a scare tactic. The envelope to Rhett was desperation. That I'd cave like I always had when she smiled, cried, touched my arm and whispered, "We can fix this." But I didn't. Because there are moments in life when pain hits a threshold and something inside you flips, not in rage, not in violence, but in clarity. I reached that moment the second she said Trevor. 2 days later, I left the house. Quietly. No grand scene. No dramatic confrontation. I didn't want closure. I didn't want revenge anymore. I wanted distance and peace. Before I walked out, I left one last letter on the kitchen table. No anger this time, just truth. I told her I forgave her, not for her sake, but for mine, because I refused to carry her choices as if they were mine to answer for. I drove away with one suitcase, my laptop, and my old acoustic guitar, the one she always mocked for being too sentimental. I didn't even have a place lined up. I just kept driving until the skyline disappeared in the rearview mirror. I rented a cabin near Cold Lake. It wasn't glamorous, one bedroom, questionable plumbing, patchy Wi-Fi, but it was quiet. And for the first time in years, so was my head. Days turned into weeks. I found myself breathing deeper, cooking for one, waking up with no sound of deception humming from the next room. I started playing guitar again, not for an audience, just for me. The calluses on my fingers came back. So did my appetite. One morning, I opened my inbox and found a message from someone named Kelsey. I didn't recognize the name. Turned out she was a friend of Malin's younger sister, someone who had seen my letter when it made the rounds through their circle. Her message was short. I just wanted to say, I always wondered if something was wrong in that house. Reading your letter made me cry. You're not crazy. You're not weak. You're just someone who finally said enough. Good for you. I sat with that for a long time. Not because I needed validation, but because for the first time, I didn't feel invisible. Someone saw me. Eventually, I got a job at a local supply warehouse. Nothing fancy, but it paid the bills. I walked to work most mornings with a coffee in hand and a scarf wrapped tight against the wind. The cold didn't bother me. Not anymore. I was thawing from the inside out. The divorce went through fast, cleaner than I expected. She didn't contest anything. Maybe because she knew she couldn't. Maybe because she finally realized I wasn't bluffing. Trevor never contacted me. Not once. I blocked him. Malin tried once. A long message, part apology, part memory reel, part half-hearted, we could still be friends. I didn't reply. Instead, I took a photo from the cabin deck, where snow had just started to fall on the lake, and posted it to a new social media account I created, one with no filtered smiles, no fake perfection. Just this caption: rebuilding quietly. The view's better from here. That post didn't go viral. It wasn't meant to, but it marked the start of my new life. I still don't know if I'll fall in love again. I'm not rushing it. I'm learning how to like being alone without feeling lonely. That, to me, is real healing. So no, this isn't the story of a man who burned his past to the ground. It's the story of a man who walked out of the fire carrying only what mattered. And for the first time in a long time, that was enough.